Understanding entanglement is actually very easy. All we have to do is reduce this complicated system we call the universe down to its primordial beginning. If you try to understand entanglement by looking to the universe and you say, wow, everything is somehow connected, everything forms a continuum. If I do anything to any element in the universe, it changes in some fashion every other thing in the universe. How is that possible? Well, if you look at it from the universe standpoint, you're never going to understand it. However, if we take the universe down to the very start, it becomes very easy to understand entanglement and see how it expands and actually creates the entire universe. It would take an extremely high intelligence to understand the very complicated universe system, but in reality, it takes an even greater intelligence to find the simplicity of what appears to be this complicated system. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to find the simplicity at the start. So the very first thing you need to know is that the universe is a closed system. This means nothing can be added or taken out of the system. Very simple. We can stretch the system. We can invert, reverse, transpose, compact the system down to nearly infinitesimally small dimensions. We can stretch the universe or the system to infinitely large dimensions. But remember, we can never add anything new or take anything out of the system that wasn't there when it started. So this means that entanglement can't be a new phenomenon. It had to exist at the beginning of the universe, and it had to be fully formed. The same is true of coherence, velocity, energy, force, and spin, information and data needed to make the universe. All had to be there at this very primordial beginning. If it wasn't, it never gets into our universe. So how could, in the beginning, all of these things actually be there at the very beginning of our system? And it's much simpler than you think. First of all the elements must come from one initial event. This makes them entangled. Anything that comes from this one initial event that is inside of our closed system must be proportional and entangled to all the other elements in the system, or the system will collapse and blink out of existence. Now there's a very easy way to start a system like our universe in space, a thermodynamic wave system. All we have to do is add a little drop of temperature into space. And this will create a wave. We call it a thermal wave because thermal stands for temperature. We call it dynamic because it's changing. So we get a thermodynamic closed system. Now temperature has a unique characteristic. And it is hot always moves into the cold. So there's no way our little drop of temperature in space could just sit there. By nature, it will automatically start dispersing into the cold. This dispersion will be in the form of a thermal wave. That will be a closed thermodynamic system. Nothing can be added or taken away from our closed system wave. We can stretch it, mirror it, compress it, reflect it, focus, any number of natural ways to transform this one temperature. However, the temperature never actually changes. Just the space that contains the temperature is being manipulated. Now, let's say that again. The temperature never actually changes. Just the space that contains the temperature. Which means if I take and I squeeze the temperature into the size of a proton, I'm going to get a really hot temperature. But I didn't add any temperature or energy to the system. All I did was change the amount of space that that temperature had to exist in. And that's an interesting concept. And that's what we're going to be working with. So try to get that into your mind. We're never going to add energy or anything to the system, but we are going to manipulate the space that these things live in. Now, if we take a temperature such as the cosmic microwave background radiation thermal wave, it is a closed dynamic thermal wave made from a microwave. Now, remember that. Cosmic microwave background has the word microwave in it. Okay? It also has the word thermal. So it is a warm microwave. That's what the C.M.B is. That is everywhere with a temperature of 2.7 degrees Kelvin. Now, we know that this temperature has been stretched across the universe because we measured it. So we know that that's very close, about as close as the universe can get to absolute zero. So we know that this temperature has been stretched and stretched and stretched. But remember, we can't change the temperature. All we can do is change the amount of space that this temperature is in. So if we take that same space of the size of the universe and squeeze it down to the size of a proton, we now have a temperature in the neighborhood of about 120 degrees Kelvin. I'm sorry, 120 billion degrees Kelvin. This will allow for a very high rate of radiation to leave our system. Now, remember, it's not just temperature that's being compressed or manipulated in the space. In this space exists energy, spin, force, momentum, entanglement. They're all being compressed as well, or stretched. Now, the elements themselves are not changing. It is the space that contains these elements that are being compressed smaller and smaller. The 2.7 degrees Kelvin is not changing, but the space that this temperature exists in is being compressed. This same space also contains all the other elements and everything needed to start at our universe. Everything that was there at the start is being compressed exactly by the same rate as our space is being compressed. You can begin to see the continuum. Nothing can act independently here. This is why all the energy of the universe can be contained within a single hydrogen atom. We know that the temperature of the C.M.B exists everywhere in the universe. It's ubiquitous and always maintains that exact temperature. The cosmic microwave radiation background wave is a wave. All waves have an inverse. Newton's third law, for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction, means that a wave cannot simply expand. It must also compress. This compression is in the center of the wave, much like a hurricane, and it's called the inverse. This means that as we create action, we create the reaction. I can't do anything to one without affecting the other. It doesn't matter how far apart the action and reaction are. They are now connected. This is entanglement at the very basic start of the system. You see how simple it really is? It is action and reaction, and the space between the action and the reaction is what is entangling these two poles. We call the action one pole and the reaction another pole. They're two opposing poles, and the space between these poles is now energized. It contains force, temperature, spin, velocity, entanglement, coherence, all the fundamental qualities needed to make the universe. You see, when we take the system back to the very start, it is easy to discern the pattern of entanglement. In the case of a microwave, we have the expansion of the outer shell, the wave dispersing in a perfect harmonic sequence. But we also have proportionally the inverse, being compressed, the reaction, in a perfect harmonic series. Now the space in between the center compression, or the inverse, and the outer expanding shell is entangled and contains all the necessary elements such as temperature, spin, velocity, coherence, and more needed to create the entire system. As long as we're using a harmonic series wave, the system will never be broken, no matter how far we stretch it or how small we compress it. The harmonic series will always remain intact. The pattern will never be broken. Since this pattern contains within its entanglement coherence, These elements will be continued through the entire system and never be broken. The next thing you need to know before we try to figure out what the system is made out of is, what is our system? What is the universe? Scientists have never actually answered this question. Ask them what the universe is. They don't know. It's really not very complicated. Again, we take it to the simplicity. If I want to know what an apple is, I will slice the apple up into smaller and smaller pieces. However, no matter how small I chop up the apple, I'm only going to get pieces of an apple. I'm never going to get pieces of a cherry from an apple. This tells me all these apple pieces, no matter how I put them back together, can only make an apple. They can never make a cherry. The universe is 99%. No matter how small I dice up the universe, I'm only going to get pieces of hydrogen. The universe must be a hydrogen atom. It cannot, under any form of reasoning, be anything else. Now that we know what the universe is, you might be asking, how can a hydrogen atom be responsible for the creation of you and me and all of reality? The truth is, everything that is needed to create what we call reality exists in the field of potential that exists between the inverse and the outer shell of the wave that creates the hydrogen atom. A hydrogen atom is indeed the perfect system that contains everything needed to make the universe. This is probably the first time that you've ever heard of this in modern physics. However, the idea that the universe is a hydrogen atom is not new. It's actually a very old and ancient concept. It is also what the great scientists such as Niels Bohr, Dirac, Schrödinger, Heisenberg, Ritz, and many others were trying to prove. They all had slightly different techniques, yet they all arrived to the same exact conclusion. Now, we don't need to invent any math to prove this argument. We will simply follow the work of the former great scientists and add in the modern elements such as entanglement and coherence that we find in the pattern of the hydrogen atom. And this means that it continues. And all the mathematical proof already exists at the very start of this pattern. All we're going to do is discover it. So we won't actually be doing any math. We're just going to be discovering. Now, Heisenberg showed that the atomic spectrum of a hydrogen atom is based on the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Ritz noticed that they were fundamental frequencies. These fundamental frequencies were further found to fall into groups, the numbers in any one of those groups being associated with the series of integers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now, in their models, when a single electron of hydrogen atom is in its innermost orbit, it is said to be in a normal state, where n is the state equals 1. The next orbit is n equals 2, and n equals 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So they actually label the shells of the hydrogen atom 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now we know that it's not actual shells like they thought, but they are waves. These are waves, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, that they thought were shells. Now, various scientists using various methods to calculate the frequencies of the hydrogen atom. And all of these various ways, and these really great scientists, in the end, they all came up with the shells of the hydrogen atom to be in the perfect pattern of 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now, this pattern of numbers is probably familiar to everybody, but it is also a harmonic series. Because in order for our system to work, we have to start with a perfect harmonic series wave. And that means the integers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 are a harmonic series. Because if you divide 1 by 2, then you divide 2 by 3, 3 by 4, 4 by 5, you get 1/2, 2/3, 3/4, 4/5, 5/6. This is called the harmonic series. In science, basically, we're told that it doesn't exist in nature. And that was wrong. It is the very foundation of nature. And this harmonic series becomes very important because the only way we could get a wave to do this harmonic series would be if that wave started with 1. If it starts with any other number, we would not get that harmonic wave pattern. Coincidentally, a microwave is the only wave that has a wavelength of exactly 1. And that is what's needed to make what the wave shown here. 1 millimeter is exactly the wavelength of the microwave. So if we start with 1, as you'll see in this photo, we get the exact dispersion pattern of the microwave. And it's exactly the same as what all the scientists said would be the hydrogen atom. It's exactly the same. If you look at it, it's incredible. So from the C.M.B, the microwave, the only possible thing that could be made in space with no exterior forces acting upon this wave is the image you're looking at, the hydrogen atom. So we know that the universe is a hydrogen atom. And now we find that the only thing that is ubiquitous throughout the universe is this thermal microwave. And it just happens to be exactly what is needed to create the hydrogen atom. So we have the building blocks for the universe. We have the C.M.B everywhere in the universe. We know that that can create the hydrogen atom. And we know the universe is made of hydrogen. So let's say it again. A thermal microwave is ever present throughout the entire universe. That happens to be exactly the wave needed to create the hydrogen atom. And the universe is 99% hydrogen. Now, if you're following this, it is truly amazing. It can't be coincidental. Now, suddenly the system begins to be very clear and not so complicated. Now, here's the pivotal moment in our history when it went wrong. Physicists and scientists agreed that a hydrogen atom existed in the shells of 1 through 9. And they were trying to prove that the universe was a hydrogen atom. There's no doubt what they were trying to prove. They wouldn't come out and say it, but that's what they were trying to prove. But back in their day, they were just discovering the possibility of entanglement. It hadn't been proven, and it was very confusing. So this pattern of the hydrogen atom that they hoped would explain the entire universe stopped because they didn't add entanglement. The scientists back in the day understood the importance of the entanglement and realized that entanglement is more fundamental than relativity. If they would have known that, they would have added it into their system of the hydrogen atom. However, these great scientists failed to see how easily they could have added entanglement into the system. So they failed at proving the hydrogen atom model to explain the entire universe. Now, due to advancements in understanding entanglement, we can now see how easily it is to add entanglement into the system. Once we add entanglement, the door to understanding the universe flies open. Here is what the scientists of the old school did not know about entanglement. When two particles are entangled, they display mirrored characteristics like spin and charge, even when separated by billions of light years. This makes them complementary. A change in one particle is instantly mirrored in the other. That is the complementary explanation of entanglement. Notice it's exactly the same as action and reaction. This means if I want to entangle something, all I need to do is mirror it. So I can simply take the hydrogen pattern made from the C.M.B, as proven by all the great scientists of the past, and mirror it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Mirrored is 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I put them together, and I get 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. That's simple. We now have the entangled hydrogen atom. Now that doesn't seem too impressive or too important, but believe me, it is, because now we can do amazing things. To start with, the pattern 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 inverted, which means we simply divide it by our one thing. So 1 divided by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 equals 8.1, 162, 243, 324. What this is a pattern. This is the spectra of the entangled hydrogen atom in perfect harmonic series, because 81 plus 81 is 162. 162 plus 81 is 243. 243 plus 81 is 324. And this pattern continues to infinity. So with one simple division, inverting our pattern, we get the entire harmonic spectrum for the hydrogen atom. Now that's impressive, because the old school scientists came up with different ways to find these frequencies of the hydrogen atom spectrum. And the equations that these scientists created would appear quite complex to the ordinary person. But these equations, for the most part, worked. And the measured frequencies matched the calculated frequencies of the hydrogen spectrum from these equations from these great scientists. But it was an extremely complicated process. We've just done the entire process through entanglement, and we didn't even actually use any math to do what they worked so hard at doing. We didn't need any complicated equations. We just calculated the perfect harmonic series hydrogen spectrum by simply dividing by 1. Now this is how we know we're on the right track, because everything is starting to fit together, and the system is becoming simpler, not more complicated. Now with our very simple idea that the universe is a hydrogen atom, we're going to find the entanglement in the system. We know so far that it is a harmonic series, which was previously thought to be impossible in nature. Now we're simply going to expand the pattern to find the entanglement. Now carefully watch this, because this is the coolest mathematical proof ever found. And it makes us question everything we ever thought we knew about numbers in math. Yet, we won't actually be doing any math. The universe is going to do it for us. Now, the universe cannot expand or contract without the information it needs to do this. This information is created through wave interactions. One must keep in mind the information must be available at the same moment on both ends of the spectrum. So, that is to say, the information to create a person must exist before or at the same moment that person is created. So the information as to how the universe was created must already exist. All we have to do is find it, not invent some complicated math system or imaginary numbers. We'll simply follow the pattern. Yes, it really is that simple. Now we're going to start with our hydrogen atom pattern. Remember it? Of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. However, this time we're going to entangle it a little bit differently. We're still going to reverse it and get our 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. But see, if you look at the chart, when we put it together reversed, we get 0, 9, 18, 27, 36, 45, 54, 63, 72, 81. Now, the interesting part about that, the amazing part is, now that we've got this new pattern of the 9, 18, 27, if you look at it, every one of them is inversed. 0, 9 is inversed by 90. 81 is 18. 72, 27, 36, 63, and 45 and 54. So again, our pattern has somehow miraculously mirrored itself. There's the entanglement. Now, you'll also notice that each one of these numbers is exactly 9 away from the other one. It's basically the 9's times table. But we didn't do any math to come up with it. All we did was combine waves. We formed a union to make those waves. Now, when we continue with this union, we combine the 9 and the 18 to 1089. And we combine the 18 and 27 to 2178. Now, I'm not going through each number, but go on the last row and notice the entanglement. The last number is 9801. The first number is 1089. They're reversed. They're mirrored. 2178, 8712. Again, mirrored. 3267, 7623, mirrored. And then 4356 and 6534 are mirrored. Each one is backwards of the other one. Now, in the most amazing thing, in the middle, we have 5445. That number itself mirrors itself. It's got 54 and the mirror 45 in itself. Now, that's amazing. Nothing like that in math has ever been. You can't even call that math. What just happened? We didn't do math. But somehow we found the most amazing pattern where the entanglement and the harmonic series stays intact. Look, it's still intact. 1089 plus 1089 is 2178. 2178 plus 1089 is 3267. And so on. Every one of them is still harmonically series and intact. Now, this is amazing. How could that happen? Even if we go back to the 9, 18, 27, 36, we find the entanglement and the harmonic series still there. Every number is mirrored, and yet every number, 9 plus 9 is 18, 18 plus 9 is 27, 27 plus 9 is harmonic series. Now, the reason this happened is because we started the system with entanglement, with the perfect harmonic series wave, the microwave. When we do that, we never lose the entanglement, and we never lose the harmonic series. And the pattern never gets broken. And it's truly incredible. Now the question is, what is this pattern? Okay, it is the hydrogen atom. This is the hydrogen atom spectrum and the different shells that's being calculated for us. We didn't have to do it. These are different dimensions as the hydrogen atom grows into the size of the universe. Notice the last number is 9801, which is interesting because that is Newton's gravitational constant. We also find 3267, which is exactly a megaparsec. We find many numbers in here that match our perfect numbers. And the reason they match was because they didn't make these numbers up. They got them from measurements in space. And Newton got that number from measurements that he made. So we're finding our pattern is matching science perfectly and creates the force needed to create the entire universe. Now, there is, of course, much more proof to this, but this video is already half an hour long. So in the next video, I will walk you through what can be done and how this actually turns into the universe. It's a very simple solution that we're dealing with, and it was overlooked by the old school physics and modern day physics. Now, this created an error that existed for over 50 years and led to the creation of all kinds of other ways to explain the universe. However, I don't need to tell you, none of them worked, because they can't even tell you what the universe is. Now, continue watching this series of videos, and we will explain the entire universe this simply, with this tiny pattern that we started with and the hydrogen atom.